Mackenzie Grace.
You never think it would happen. Many of you have asked us for our story of our beautiful daughter, Mackenzie Grace. And we decided that on her 1 year of birth that it would be fitting to tell this story in a video format so multiple people out there, whoever wants to hear it, can hear it and enjoy this journey that we went on.
A crazy wild ride is more like it.
Touche. But I don't feel I can start the story right, so I want to give my beautiful wife the opportunity to start us off.
Thanks. Well, it was actually a year ago today that my labor, I guess, started. We had our mentor coming into town that weekend, and so I was doing what I would always do when I had guests over, and I was cleaning the house and going to the grocery store, and I was actually out front scrubbing the bug guts off my brand new car. And we went to bed, got Kaylin down, and Josh and I are laying in bed, and I looked over at him and I said, you know, babe, I've been having really intense Braxton Hicks all day, or at least half the day, and the last hour I told him, I said, I feel like I could have counted at least 3 or 4. And funny thing is he looked right at my stomach and pointed and said, listen here, you cannot come this weekend. Went to bed, didn't think anything of it. All of a sudden woke up at 4:30, I think it was, and I just could not get comfortable, and I don't remember what back labor felt like. I had back labor with Kaylin, and I guess I was having back labor with Mackenzie. Again, didn't think anything of it, thought, you know, maybe I just ate something. We had tacos that night. So I couldn't get comfortable, took a bath. That helped relax me a little bit, but I started charting contractions at that point. And they were anywhere from 5 minutes to 11 minutes to 9 minutes and just kind of all over the place. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna try and go back to sleep. Went back into bed, and I was really vocal. I couldn't get comfortable and ended up waking him up. And I had started charting my contractions on my phone, and he looked down at my phone and he's like, what does this mean? And I'm like, well, I think this means that we're in labor. And with Kaylin, we actually got sent home from the hospital twice, and so we were just like, we don't want to do that again. So he's like, well, you know, should we get ready and go? And I said, I don't know. And maybe 15 minutes went by, if that. Neither one of us could get comfortable. So he got up, got in the shower. By this point, it's like almost 6 o'clock, or maybe even a little bit after 6 o'clock. And I'm in bed again, just kind of laying there going, okay, maybe I should get up. And so I got up, started getting ready, you know, putting my face on, brushing my teeth, my hair, all that stuff. And in between contractions, at this point, I'm still charting them, and they're anywhere from, what was that, 5 to 6 minutes apart, 4 to 6 minutes apart at that point?
Something like that.
And they were getting consistent, and we're like, okay, we still have time, you know. And I would grab the counter and breathe, stop, breathe through my contractions, relax everything in my, you know, area where the contractions are going on. And then I would start, you know, keep getting ready again. And oddly enough, it worked out. We had Josh's aunt, his wonderful Aunt Debbie, come and watch Kaylin, and she had the day off, so it was like perfect. Josh's mom thought, oh, I have time, I'm gonna go to Starbucks, you know, get my chai. And we're walking out the door, and at that point, my contractions were anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes apart, and his aunt looked at him and she said, you better get her to the hospital or she's not gonna make it. So I waddle my butt out to the car, and he gets me in the car, and thankfully he put towels in the car.
Now, mind you, most people, they go to a hospital within reasonable distance.
Yes.
Our hospital is an hour away.
Without traffic.
Without traffic. And so when my aunt said that you're not going to make it, you know, it's because of the long drive. But to us, we got sent home the first time, and we didn't think anything of it. And so we're like, well, we'll make it. And her contractions were semi-consistent. They weren't exactly consistent, like, you know, they tell you, hey, you know, when it's like this, go to the hospital. We weren't there yet. And we weren't there we were more there with Kaylin than we were with Mackenzie. And when we went with Kaylin, they sent us home. And so we thought we, you know, had time, and so we get in the car, and we get in the car, and yes, I did put towels in there. It was that smart brain of mine, I guess.
Yes. Thank Thank you, Jesus.
So we get driving,
Yes.
and
I'm super uncomfortable. Laboring in the car is probably the worst place you can ever labor in. Ladies, I wouldn't recommend it. Sitting seatbelted in, I could not get comfortable, and so yeah, I'm gonna say that I did this. I reclined my seat all the way back and got on my hands and knees and rocked back and forth, because that's what I did with Kaylin, and it was tolerable. I had an all-natural birth with Kaylin. And so I did the same thing with Mackenzie, and we're 10 minutes into the drive, 15 minutes into the drive, and my water breaks.
yeah, no, it was probably more like 20 minutes.
Maybe 20, yeah.
And people who are in Phoenix area and know the area, we were just getting almost to the that would be the Santan 202 freeway,
Yes.
and her water breaks, but
Thankfully, it really didn't go anywhere. I was wearing ugly gray maternity sweatpants, and it just kind of trickled down my legs and kind of stopped there. I was really scared to tell him though, because he was already going an obscene speed.
I was speeding a little bit.
Just a smidge. And so when I told him, I was like, I have to tell him before this next contraction. I just have to. He kind of floored it a little bit, and so I kind of flew back a little bit at the starting of my next contraction, and
listen, if you're driving and your wife looks at you and says, my water just broke, all I can think of is, Lord, this baby can't come in the car. God, you need to help me. And so I floor it, because all I could think about is just getting to the hospital. And I said, if the baby comes in the waiting room, there's people there. I don't have to mess with it. And it was 5 minutes later, maybe 10 at the most. No,
Yeah.
it had like 5 to 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, Jen goes,
well, the crazy thing is my contractions never got to that minute to minute. With Kaylin, they did. With Mackenzie, they were still 2 to 3 minutes apart. And he's right. After my water broke, we turned onto the Santan, heading eastbound. And I just all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really feel like I need to bear down. And I thought to myself, this really can't be happening. This is my brand new car. I'd only had the car, a month and a half? Brand new car, Dodge Journey, great car, we love it. And I'm still on my hands and knees, so whoever, is seeing this, I'm sure is thinking there's like some circus going on in the car. And I feel the need to bear down and push, and I'm like, okay, I feel her kind of coming out, and I still have my pants on. So I flip over, and at that point I panicked a little bit, just because I didn't want her to be born in my underwear. And I said, babe, I need your help. And so he's like, what? I said, she's coming. And he's like, what? And he helped me pull my pants down. You can say this part, because this was all you.
If somebody tells you a baby's coming and you're already freaked out, I went to a whole nother level of freaking out. I was sitting there thinking, God, you've got to be kidding me. And so she turns over, flips around, and all of a sudden I look down, and here is a head. Here is a head that is the baby's being born, Mackenzie's being born, and all I say is, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And I was like, all I could think about is, this is not happening, this is not happening. And then I just looked at Jenna and I said, grab the baby, because I was afraid she was going to just go onto the floor, and this was going to be...
Which I don't know why she would think that. Hello.
And so she pulls the baby out. I'm still freaking out. I was speeding before. I put the limits onto my vehicle. I grabbed my phone, called 911, and they're like, oh, okay. And they transferred me to the fire department. And for some reason, on this particular day, the gentleman who answered the phone was a slow-talking Mr. Rogers. And I love Mr. Rogers, but when you're freaking out, Mr. Rogers is not who you want to talk to. And he's like, okay, settle down. Is the baby breathing? And I'll go, is the baby breathing? Is the baby breathing?
Yeah.
So are you sure?
And verbatim, this is exactly how I said it. I said, she's breathing, I'm fine, she's fine, just drive us to the hospital.
So I get on the phone and I'm like, Yeah, she's breathing. He's like, well, can you pull the car over? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can pull the car over, but can you get to me before I can get to the hospital? And he's like, well, what hospital are you going to? And we told him, and he's like, okay, well, you keep going and let's call the hospital. So he calls the hospital. And,
which, really quick, thankfully, he did not pull over, because if he did,
oh yeah,
we would have been on the news. So
and, well,
my husband loves
I don't know
me.
if we would be on the news, but I know afterwards, when I was talking to Jen, that was what was going through my head when he asked me to pull over, is that we're going to be on the morning rush hour news about a car pulled over, traffic is backed up because there's a newborn baby that's just been born on the freeway. I didn't want that to be us, and so I kept driving, partly because of that and partly because I would have went to the hospital to get there before they got to us.
Yes.
But he's on the phone, he calls the hospital, and he's like, okay, and he starts talking to the person, and he called the wrong hospital. And so he's like, oh, well, let's call the right hospital. And so he gets the right hospital, and they tell us to pull around where the ambulance, where they go and pull. And so I'm still, speed racer, and I'm pulling around, and
And he's asking me how to get to the emergency room. Yeah.
It was just, get it done.
Where is this place? We've been here before. Come on.
And so we go to the back. I pull to the ambulance area, and they told me on the phone, not only the fireman, but the person that was at the hospital said that there'd be a crew waiting for us. And I'm already freaking out. And guess what? There was no crew waiting for us. So I jump out of the vehicle. I run to that door that is conveniently locked. And I look in, there's nobody there. So I start to run around the corner because I was going to go to the emergency room. Well, the emergency room is way far away. So as I was running, I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I turn back around and I run back to that door and I start just beating on the door. And the police officer comes out and I said, people are supposed to be waiting for us. My wife just had a baby. And then all these people came out right when, then this whole crew, firemen, paramedics, all these different people come out. And it was, I was like, why weren't they here already? And so we go and, they're asking us questions. And
really quick, I have to point out that my husband made a very astute observation during the whole thing. He looked at me at one point and said, that is the calmest I've ever seen you since I've known you. And we've known each other, what, 12, 13 years? Yeah. And, it's kind of like, okay, this is happening, Lord, just help me through it. And again, I'm so thankful it was not my first baby, because if it was, I would have been freaking out with him, and that really wouldn't have done us any good. But I had done my research. I felt like I was educated enough. Again, I had been through it once before. And I consider myself to be very blessed that, number one, that she was healthy. Everything was, not ideal on the location, but for me personally, I want to do things as naturally as possible. If our insurance could cover it, I would have my babies at home, but we have amazing insurance, and so we did the hospital thing. But Mackenzie came out, she was perfect, she was fine, she was breathing, I was fine, there was no, crazy hemorrhaging or, when the doctors checked her out, they were like, she's perfect, you don't even look like you had a baby, are you kidding me right now, and I felt great. And I feel in this day and age to have delivered my own child is kind of an accomplishment, an amazing thing in itself, because it's not something that's done very often anymore. So anyway, we'll go back to the whole hospital thing.
Yeah, and as we, we're almost done. We get there, they get us up to the room, and every nurse that comes in, everybody comes in, they say the exact same thing. Oh, you guys are the talk of the hospital. You guys are the talk of the hospital. This, which she is, but amazing mother. How did you do it? Super mom. People would just come in just to look at Jen. It was like this.
Even the doctor, she was just like, you didn't just have a baby in your car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did. And based off the way I guess that I looked and just, everything, she's just like, that's just incredible. And then
and I ended up nicknamed the crazy guy.
Crazy guy.
Because I was
Psycho Daddy.
running back and forth and beating on the door, and they thought they were gonna have to call security. But I go back, they were supposed to be waiting. I'm justified.
Yes.
but it was an experience, and I tell people this: I never want to do it again. It was scary for
I would
me.
love to deliver another child again, but not in a car.
It was scary, very dangerous, driving at the speeds I was because of I was let's get there. But God protected us, protected Mackenzie.
Yes.
She's beautiful, she's healthy, and we're excited that she's turning 1.
Oh my gosh.
This year has flown by, and
it literally feels like yesterday this happened, and it's just crazy.
so we hope you guys enjoyed our story.
Yes.
It's one of those that rarely happen, and it happened to us.
Well, rarely, and all of a sudden now it's kind of the thing to do, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's kind of been a YouTube thing
But
with different people.
definitely she's a blessing.
Yes,
So,
she's amazing and spunky, and she's her own little person and character, and she brings so much joy.
thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.